everyone. This is Allison Russell. I am here with Shanti Ross and Monique Ross of Sister Strings and Meg McCormick. We're so happy to be here at WNXP's Sonic Cathedral playing live for you today.
In the blue Comanche, shimmering still, Dame Coluna, old lady of the hills, copper cold sun and a winter pale, send me back on my way. 7 black rabbits of Hy-Brasil, 21 petals of daffodils, 13th note of the black cap trill. I'm flying home today. My great-grandmother was a magic weaver, came across the water and caught the fever. Wondered if her mother could hear her when she sang the words she learned to say. In the blue Comanche, shimmering still, Dame Coluna, old lady of the hills, copper cold sun and a winter pale, send me back on my way. 7 black rabbits of Hy-Brasil, 21 petals of daffodils, 13th note of the black cap trail. I'll fly home today. Down in the cradle, oh, I would hear as I breathe. My soul believed if I sang those words, I could leave there, leave my sorrow and pain. Though my brittle body was caught in a snare, my soul had learned how to travel where the eyes of the rabbits were gleaming there on the Isle of Hy-Brasil. 7 years we drown, 7 years we rise, said the black rabbit with the ancient eyes. You'll be free, a lure, a lie, he cannot match your will. In the blue Comanche, shimmering still, Dame Coluna, old lady of the hills, copper cold sun and a winter pale, send me back on my way. 7 black rabbits of Hy-Brasil, 21 petals of daffodils, 13th note of the black cap trail. I'll fly home today. Oh, I drowned for 10 years, I'm still rising, stronger for my pain and suffering. My body was broken, my heart's reborn, I'm freer than the sky. In the blue Comanche, shimmering still, Dame Coluna, old lady of the hills, copper cold sun and a winter pale, send me back on my way. 7 black rabbits of Hy-Brasil, 21 petals of daffodils, 13th note of the black cap trail. I'll fly home today.
of our scars. We're the dust of the stars and the bones of the earth. We're the breath of the void, the expanse of our imaginations, of our art, of the love in our hearts. We are the beloved community and we lift each other up. Our circle is battered and bloody and bruised, but it is unbroken and whole, none above, none below, equal under the listening sky.
Was the queen of Westmount Park. It was our mine after dark. Old willow tree, it was my throne till I went home. Father used me like a wife. Mother turned the blindest eye. Stole my body, spirit, pride. He did each night. And it's one for the hay, the loops and loops. Two for the poison and the roots. Three for the children begging you. Four for the day was setting in the sun. Ooh, 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 yeah. These are the best years of your life. If I believed it, I'd have died. Something told me that they lie. Oh, I survived. I left home, I was just a child. Slept in the graveyard under the mouth. When the sun came up and found my skin, I rose again. And it's one for the hay, then two for the poison and the roots. Three for the children breaking through. Four for the day was setting in the sun. Ooh, 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 hey, ooh, yeah. Slipstreams and fever dreams. Do you see what I can't see? Well, tell me, I want to understand. From the coast of Africa to the hills of Grenada to the cold of Montreal, that whip still falls. And it's one for the hay that loops and loops. Two for the poison and the roots. Three for the children begging through. Four for the day we're standing in the sun. Two for the poison and three for the children breaking. Four for the day, for the hate that two for the poison and three for the children breaking. Four for the day. What we've lost, but still we've lost too much. We've lost too many. We've lost too many women and children and non-binary and trans and gender expansive folks who look like
Meg, Monique, Shanti, and me disproportionately. And we're set to lose more. Because we are repealing, it seems, women's bodily autonomy. How can this be? How can this be in the year 2000, almost 23? You cannot call yourself a champion of life and ignore women's right to choose for themselves. We are only the beloved community if we choose to be, if we choose to recognize our full and equal humanity. I believe that we can be.
She's been a fixture long as I've lived here, on the corner most every night for the last 6 years. When she's not there, when she's not there, when she's not there, I worry about her, worry about her. Think of all of the women, all of the women, all of the women who disappear, who disappear. We've made friendly acquaintance. Sometimes we talk. She likes the way that I smile and sing as I walk. I like her fabulous outfits, the proud way she moves. She says I used to be a dancer. Some grace you don't lose, some grace you don't lose. She said I made some choices. Some were made for me, for the way I survive. I make no apology. Everybody and somebody don't always meet up. I'm the salvation for those left without, and those left without, living small lives that I provide can't be measured in nickels and dimes, in nickels and dimes. I ask, what about the bad days? Don't you ever get scared? Well, I had my share, honey, but it's fear I can bear. It's fear I can bear, 'cause I'm stronger than eggshells, and I'm tougher than love. Never been despised so much, or hit so hard, or hit so hard. I couldn't get back up. Couldn't get back up. I couldn't get back up. Couldn't get back up. I couldn't get back up. long as I've lived here, on the corner most every night, for the last 6 years. When she's not there, I worry about her. Think of all of the women, all of the women, all of the women, all of the women, all the women, all of 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 the women, disappear, who disappear, who disappear.
This is 91.1 WNXP. I am Marquis Munson, and I am inside the Sonic Cathedral with the Grammy-nominated Allison Russell.
Hello.
How's it going?
So well. I'm
It's
so
great
happy to be here with you.
It's great to finally meet you in person.
I know. We've been Twitter friends, Twitter buddies for the last 2 years.
And now I get to see you in person, and it's great.
Yeah.
And to see your journey now, it's amazing, and we'll talk about that. But you're also joined with some friends as well.
I am. I have got Shanti Ross and Monique Ross of Sister Strings and Megan McCormick with me today. And they are all incredible multi-instrumentalists, composers, songwriters, singers, producers, and they're all based here in our beautiful Nashville now too.
Just multi-talented,
Yep.
as all of you guys are. Now, in a couple of weeks, we will be hitting the 1-year anniversary of your debut album.
I know, I can't believe it.
And since then, Grammy nominations and performances all across everywhere. You mentioned that you've been on the road for a while now.
Yeah.
And so have you actually had time to just sit back and reflect on everything?
I mean, not really. I am also writing a book, so in that process, I'm trying to also do some reflecting. But it's a memoir that's kind of grown out of the Outside Child record. But it has been a whirlwind. It's less than a year, and the
so much has happened. You know, I was describing it the other day as it felt like there were just walls everywhere for so long, and then suddenly a magical door opened, and there was a beautiful path lined with Spanish moss that turned into a secret garden, and then there was like a party with chocolate fondue and string quartets, and like, what is happening? You know, like when has this been here the whole time? You just didn't let me know until now. It's been really surreal. So no, I have not fully had time to process, and like, you know, getting nominated for my first Junos, which are like our Canadian versions of the Grammy, and that all of it is just surreal. You know?
Yeah,
but great. I'm very grateful.
Absolutely, and I will go anywhere with a chocolate fondue. So let's just make that happen.
Do it.
But this album, Outside Child, is I will say for you, it seems like it's a life journey. So it's like lifelong in the making with
absolutely.
this album. But you've had the last couple of years to really just kind of sit back and reflect on everything with the pandemic, and so you were able to process a lot of what you went through in your past during the pandemic, like a lot of us did. So when you started to make this album and that process of, you know, putting together this project, was it the pandemic that helped you put all this body of work together?
You know, it's funny because I actually recorded Outside Child before the pandemic. We recorded it. I had been on the road with Our Native Daughters, which is a group I'm part of with Rhiannon Giddens, Layla McCalla, who has an amazing new record out this month. Y'all go check out Layla McCalla's Breaking the Thermometer. And Amethyst Kia, who is a stunning, stunning artist who just put out a brilliant record called Wary and Strange. And Rhiannon Giddens just won the Folk Grammy for her amazing record, Calling Me Home. So, you know, I was out on the road with these brilliant goddesses, and that's when the Outside Child songs started coming through. And I basically wrote the first several of them on the Native Daughters tour bus kind of in July and August of 2019, and then ended up getting a grant from the Canada Council for the Arts. I'm Canadian new immigrant to America, so in Canada we still have quite a bit of public arts funding. And I got this demo writing grant basically, and it was enough to pay for 4 days at the Sound Emporium. And everybody, kind of my close musical chosen family circle, were in town for Americana Fest in September of 2019. And we booked 4 days and recorded Outside Child in 4 days. And then I didn't know what to do with it because I had never dreamt or desired to put myself forward under my own name in a solo project kind of a way. I've always been more collaborative, like whether it was Our Native Daughters or Birds of Chicago or Poe Girl, or Capital Sun Rays, with Luther Dickinson and Amy Helm and Graham Lesh. Like, I've always been more in collaborative mode and more comfortable that way. But it was the pandemic, as you say, the being forced to stop. I'd been kind of on this hamster wheel of subsistence touring, frankly, working poor, as so many of us realized we were when the gigs stopped for 2 weeks and then a month and then 2 months and then 3 months. And I mean, a lot of us were like, where's rent going to come from? Where's food going to come from? How am I going to clothe my kid and pay the heating bills and the all of it? It got really scary, and I realized how vulnerable we actually were and how very close to being unhoused we actually were. I think a lot of gig workers discovered that during the pandemic. I was incredibly lucky. I have a daughter who at the start of the pandemic was 6. She's now 8. Yola, my sister Anna Teixeira, and my partner JT Nero, Ida, and I, we all were able to kind of hunker down in a house that Rhiannon bought back when she was on the Nashville show out in Madison, Tennessee, and we were able to kind of pool our resources and to help and take care of each other. And we actually talked about this with Julie right when WNXP opened. We talked about this with Julie Height, like how we got through the pandemic, and she was the first person to come into our compound. Kind of, we were all masked and distanced in the yard, but I just had this full circle memory moment of, and that was before Outside Child came out. But we got through it together, and we got through it through the help of our community, and we were able to, we had enough resources together that we could access playing live stream shows and doing those things, and we played benefits, and I also had this record that I'd made that we had the time then to kind of shop around and find a home for, find a family for. And it was through that process and reaching out to other women in the industry, really, it was so many of my sister musicians who helped this record find its place and find its platform. And it was Brandy Carlisle who called up Fantasy Records and said, Margie Chesky at Fantasy, who's the president there, and said, you've got to listen to this record. I think it's going to resonate for you. And that's how that relationship began. And now, I think the Concord family is a really special one, because there are a lot of people in curatorial positions and positions deciding, decision-making positions who also have intersectional identities, like as we do. And that makes a big difference to how they heard this record. I got quite a few rejections early on with it for over a year, and so I was able to find the right family for this album because of being forced to stop by the pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 Grammy nominations and a Juno Award later, and now we're here.
I know.
And
but that's so much the team, right? It's not.
Yes.
I think people that aren't in the industry don't realize how much of a difference it makes if you have a team that believes in you as an artist and believes in the art that you made, like actually does, isn't trying to, get the new hit single and one and done, but is really investing in a long-term way in an artist. And it's rare these days, and that's why I'm speaking of it, because you hear so many horror stories about, sort of predatory or abusive kind of label entities, and I've had the opposite experience. But that was also through the auspices of all the women in our community, all the artists in our community who've helped me navigate through this kind of process.
Yeah, and that's why it's good to have what you called it when you were answering that question, your chosen family. Yeah. These people that are sitting on stage with you, as well as every time I watch a performance from Allison Russell, she has 18 people on stage. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm over exaggerating the number, but it's always a lot of people from Joy Clark to Deja McBride to Kashana Armstrong. Yes. It's just always a wide array of just different people. Is that how you like to perform? Just bringing a bunch of people together.
Yes,
and just
because if it's a bunch of us, then it's not a moment, it's a movement, and that's what I want. I want it to be a movement. I want it to be everybody lifting each other up, because there's this tired old, particularly if you're a woman of color, if you're a queer woman of color, you get told there's very limited, it's the scarcity trick, right? The scarcity fallacy. There are only X number of people who will ever be interested in you and what you're doing. Therefore, you have to compete against every other person that we've decided you're just exactly like, because we're tokenizing and fetishizing you. And y'all have to compete for this scrap. And that is a bunch of nonsense. And that is it is feudalism, essentially. It's like the divide and conquer, exhausted and exhausting and toxic, and now has a body count. Absolutely specious reasoning, that the intention of which is to keep people from finding community, and in finding community, finding agency, and being empowered to create our own abundance, And that's what I'm really interested in, uplifting and amplifying community, coalition, collaboration, cross-pollination. I have very little interest in competition or music as blood sport. I think it's a distraction. I think it takes away from the art. And I'm a mom now, and so much of that time during the pandemic of thinking about what is art to me? How do I use what do I have to offer in this world? I have very few skills. I'm a very limited person. I can use words and melodies. That's about it, really. And how am I using my words? I'm always saying this to my child: use your words, use your words. How am I using my words, and how can I use them most effectively? And how can I be part of changing things that hurt or could hurt my child and other children, right? To me, it's about, my central guiding principle has become harm reduction and communication, transparency, building community wherever I can. And so this gives me strength, and hopefully we when we're amplifying each other's work and sharing in each other's work, then there's just a kind of an exponential possibility instead of limitation. And that's really what I'm interested in. And one day, hopefully, being a good ancestor and being able to look my kid in the eye and say, I did everything I could to make things a little bit better with limited skills that I had,
Well, the movement's working. And I remember, I was like, man, even Shaka Khan is on stage with Allison Russell. At this point, that
was incredible.
It was great to see. But how does it feel? I'll ask you this final question. How does it feel to be performing these songs in front of people again, not on Zooms or anything, live in person,
It
being
is.
able to perform these songs and seeing the impact that you're making with your music.
It is beyond joyful. I mean, I don't think any of us are ever going to take for granted again getting to be in, have an actual physical joyful assembly and that creative communion together, you know, not just those of us playing on a stage, but everyone who chooses to gather and listen and pour that energy back at us. Like, that's a full circle of energy. And what you talked about was Shaka coming on stage. That was our debut as a band, and it was also my debut as a curator. I had never been given the role of a curator, and I think it's a sacred role. At the Newport Folk Festival last summer, I got invited very last minute because they had a headliner drop out, but Jay Sweet, who is the artistic director there, invited me to curate the final set of the Sunday night Newport stage. And I knew immediately when he asked me that I wanted to really, really center, to honor Odetta's founding influence and to really center the experiences of women and non-binary artists of color, because that's, you know, folk has, and country adjacent and Americana has had this kind of whitewashing occur that does not tell us the full picture of the foundations and the roots of all of these genres and idioms. And that festival is built on Odetta's incredible charisma, momentum, artistry. To me, you know, people talk about Newport and they think about the Judas moment with Bob Dylan. But to me, that's not the most interesting story. Bob Dylan was electric before he was acoustic. He was electric back in Minneapolis. It was when he heard Odetta that he became the iconic 60s, you know, revolutionary figure, an acoustic artist that kind of first came to prominence. And so that, to me, is the story. And it's a fascinating thing. If you ever listen to Dylan interviews, the most direct he ever gets is if people ask him about Odetta and the reverence that he has and the acknowledgement that he always gives her. And he always says, everything changed for me when I heard her. So that, to me, is the story, this radical Black and Jewish coalition that helped to fuel and fund the civil rights movement. The freedom singers inspired and gave courage to the freedom riders. You know, Daisha McBride and I got to be part of the naming of St. John Lewis Way. St. John, I'm calling him a saint. He should be a saint. Representative John Lewis Way, you know, our Fifth Avenue, which is now Representative John Lewis Way, which is so historic and healing and important. And we were part of the ceremony to honor him. His surviving family members were there, and the surviving freedom riders were there. And every one of them that spoke said the music kept us going. You know, and that is a powerful thing, and we are part of that story. We are all part of that story. And so I wanted to center that, and Once and Future Sounds was just this joyful celebration of all of these amazing women. Caroline Randall Williams, who's our poet laureate here in Nashville, Yasmin Williams, Joy Oladikin, Cam Franklin, Yola, Sister Strings, Megan McCormick, Celise. I mean, we had just, Shaka came. Shaka was our surprise, you know, finale guest. And it turns out that I'm Every Woman and Ain't Nobody are just as much folk canon as Goodnight Irene, you know, or any other song like that. Every single man in that audience, white, 70 years old, didn't matter, was jumping up and down singing I'm Every Woman. You know, it was beautiful. It was so amazing. And she was so generous with all of us. And I feel like I'm forgetting people. Did I forget to name some of our collaborators? Brandy Carlisle, Margot Price, Adia Victoria. Oh my Lord, Adia Victoria did the most incredible version of South Gotta Change at that festival. That was just stunning. I mean, you know, it was a complete. Sunny War, who just moved to town. She just moved to town. She's recording a new record for New West Records. It's incredible. I got to sing a few harmonies on there the other day. I mean, we've got this community coalescing here. And Nashville has always been Music City because of the Fisk Jubilee Singers. It always has been. But I feel like we're in this time of really beautiful and inclusive expansion. I feel like there's kind of a whole new, it feels like a renaissance to me happening in this city, and an evolution that's really beautiful and healing and exciting and personally really inspiring.
And you're a part of that, and we thank you for that. Your voice is powerful on your music, and it's also outside of it as well. Grammy nominated, Allison Russell, also Twitter friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marquis.
Thank you so much for joining me in the Sonic Cathedral, and thank you for performing today.
Thank you.